welcome to another episode of Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinitwe. Thank you so much for joining us in another conversation, and I'm excited to have an interesting panel with me this Sunday. But before we get into the conversation, feel free to check us out on Twitter at Your Space Uganda. Let us know how you feel about the conversation and your feelings on the topic for the day. But let's first introduce our guests. We'll start by the lady just right next to me. Hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Good evening, viewers. I am Patricia Chano Kiria, Deputy Inspector General of Government, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation this evening.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Patricia. Hello and welcome to the space.
Thank you so much, Hannah. My name is Daphne Tumimbise, and I'm going to be a fresh graduate very soon.
Hallelujah. We thank you, Jesus.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
Daphne.
and I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. Hello and welcome to the usual suspect. Thank you and welcome to the show.
This time I've become the grand suspect. Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And thank you so much, viewers. As always, my name is Joel Sakwa. And welcome back from the month of smiling at our visitors.
Yes. Today's topic is one that I've been dying to look at. We're going to be looking at intergenerational dialogue on corruption and whether it will work in bridging the gap between the youth and their experiences in relation to corruption. We could maybe first start off by understanding what intergenerational dialogue is. I'll leave that to Daphne. Daphne, what is intergenerational dialogue?
Thank you so much, Hannah. First and foremost, take this opportunity to thank you again for giving me such a platform. And when we talk about intergenerational dialogue, that is where we, the young people, get an opportunity to converse, to exchange words of grace with our elders in different environments. Yes, thank you.
Yes, Joel, how do you look at that segment?
Okay, I don't know whether Dr. Patricia can relate to this and the viewer in her age bracket, but there is a way we classify ourselves: Generation Z, the millennials,
Yes.
and other generations. So Uganda is diverse, but majority of our population, by virtue of our age brackets, we are in a certain bracket. So mostly we are millennials and Generation Z. Dr. Patricia will make some more research on that, I'm sure. But generally, generations, people in different age brackets, how are we dealing with the issues that are affecting our country? So making sure that we bridge the gap, we close the gap, instead of just continuing maybe to throw spears at those people that are older than us and telling them that, you know what, this is what you're supposed to do and you're not acting. So how can the youth be involved? So that's the question of intergeneration. Yes, let's talk about these things. Let's act.
Definitely. Dr. Patricia, do you think that these intergenerational dialogues are necessary? Because some of us feel like, why must I waste my time speaking to this older person? They will not understand me and what I'm trying to do. I don't know if you have faced that experience where young people don't really want to talk about anything. They just want to do and act on a whim.
I think intergenerational dialogue is very, very significant, especially if we are to move from where we are to a better place. Because you realize that the older generation, where I belong, we have got historical memory to most of the things. And when we share those experiences, we come with historical perspectives on how we used to approach issues during our times, and we can share experiences with the younger generation and teach them how they can do things better. But the younger generation also comes to the dynamism, where they are now into the digitization, the digital world, the Twitter. Now, those of us from the PO Box era have a lot of value we add to the knowledge, the existing knowledge the young people have. So I think this intergenerational dialogue is very, very important because the young people can leverage from the lessons, from the experiences the older people have, because there is a saying that the old broom knows the corners
of the house.
of the house.
Yes.
So, and there is a lot of knowledge. The older generation are like the think tanks, because we can come with experiences, with knowledge, which we can impart on the youth, on the younger generation, and they can add their digital knowledge to really flourish in their activities, in their work. So I think this is very, very important, because it can take us very far, especially when we adopt approaches and strategies like mentorship, like coaching, like skilling, to support the young people to be able to hold the mantle, because the young people are the future leaders of this country.
Yeah.
And if there are lessons to learn, they can learn from history.
Yes.
If our generation has made mistakes, they can learn from those mistakes to be better leaders. If we have done very well, they can pick from those good examples and put the examples to good use in order to manage to sail through here.
Daphne, how do you think that, what ways do you think we can combine the wisdom of the older generation and the innovative freshness of the younger generation when it comes to fighting corruption in our community?
Well, thank you, host. Now, through different avenues, for example, let us take different conventions and symposiums that are being conducted in this country. That is where you find an opportunity to associate with different panels, and different panels provide different knowledge. Yeah, we pick a leaf from those people through what they tell us in such a moment. And number two, for example, I appreciate so much. We happened to attend one of the intergenerational dialogue. I think it was 24th January, and it was really amazing. You get moment to interact with someone physically, because for us we believe that those big people in government are not reachable, because they are busy people, you know. So when you get that moment to interact with that person
and share with them,
exactly, you can get that moment where you can break the odds. Like you had a misconception about something, and it tells you that this and this is done like this and this. So through mobilization of different conferences and convention plus symposiums, we can be able to narrow the knowledge gap between elders and the young people in this country.
I want us now to go into storytelling. I don't know if people in this panel ever went around a fire and listened to the stories done by grandma and grandpa back in the village. Have you experienced that, Joel, or for you a planned kid? Yeah, planned kid. You've experienced
not necessarily a planned kid. Just to tell you about myself, I grew up so much with my grandfather. Yeah, so we were so close. Especially those days when we would, even when I joined school, we would visit. I think that's why I got all his names. Yes. So in one way or the other, they saw me as a reproduction of himself. And then I've related a lot with people that are older than me. Sometimes I come to think about it and I say, hey, am I missing something from the younger people? Because sometimes you may find yourself over-relating with the generation across, and you forget where you are.
So I think the reason why I asked this question is because I believe that storytelling is a very key way that we can improve the intergenerational dialogue, where we look at the history. How was this done way back in the day? How can we improve that and make it better in the world? Why do you think that storytelling, plays a big role when it comes to the fight against corruption?
Okay, stories carry experiences. Okay, Dale Carnegie's book, quite a famous one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He gives storytelling as one of the carriers. It carries information, it carries messages. Okay, there are things that we were told through stories that would teach us about integrity, how a cat should act, but in other words, they weren't meaning a cat.
The cat was me and
yes,
you.
the cat, yes. So generally, especially for the younger people, as in the younger people 12 and below, 10, to grow up in a culture of integrity, we need to nurture them in these stories. Unfortunately, most cases, younger people do not get the opportunity to grow up with their grandparents and the parents that would tell them some of these stories. They may not know them as well, or they are busy, they are not available, but stories carry a message, especially in nurturing integrity. I know you can testify that there is that story that you listen to. Maybe it could be in Sanji. I remember the Sanji stories. All those stories telling you how to keep the integrity of your body, keeping, yes. So these stories really cast a shadow.
Definitely.
Not only on the way the child is nurtured, okay, but in the way they will behave. Solomon says that train a child in the way they should go, that when they grow up they may not turn away from it. And stories are the strength. It's where we impart the knowledge.
Definitely.
Yes.
I think maybe this could be a great idea, Dr. Patricia, for your office, to maybe play a role in bringing back the whole aspect of storytelling, you know, to help us understand more on how to face and fight corruption, even avoid being corrupt people ourselves. But there'll always be challenges when it comes to intergenerational dialogue. And I think this is an everyday aspect we live and breathe in Uganda. There's so much clash, so much chaos when it comes to, you know, the dialogue between the older generation and the younger generation. But let's get back into that in a second. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back from that short break. We are still here on Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinito. We are still dissecting the whole aspect of intergenerational dialogues. And I did mention before we get into the break that there's so much clash when it comes between the older generation and the younger generation. There are those challenges, that aspect where we do not really understand each other. And I see it in every day on the news, where the young people feel that maybe the older generation in their positions of power are misusing their power, or maybe they don't understand how those things go in the offices. So how do you think we could fight that clash between the two generations?
Well, the two generations, first of all, need to work in harmony. They need to work in harmony with each other to avoid those clashes, because like I said earlier on, the older generation is like a think tank with historical memory. And you touched on storytelling, and storytelling brings out the rich context of how corruption used to be previously and how it is today. I was involved, Hannah, in amending the Anti-Corruption, in the Prevention of Corruption Act. Previously, corruption was just looked at from the perspective of bribery. Bribery. And if you look at the Prevention of Corruption Act, it looked at corruption as bribery, just a bribe. But today we have so many forms of corruption. In developing this new law, we had to do consultations and dig history. Why was it that it was only looking at it from the perspective of bribery and not looking at these other forms of corruption? And it informed us. Why am I bringing this history? Because storytelling is very rich in history. You get to see cultures and traditions and how they handled issues previously, how corruption began evolving, how it changed forms, and now there are so many examples of forms or contexts of corruption, and how it was dealt with previously. You can even dig it from the Bible times. You remember the story of Ananias and Sapphira, Acts chapter 5, where corruption was summarily dealt with by God. You tell a simple lie, you're struck. But now the grace of God is sufficient. We have institutions like the Inspectorate of Government and so many others, and we're saying, hey, stop, name and shame, report the cases to us. But if we were acting that way, today everybody doing corruption, involved in corruption, would be slaughtered or taken to the gallows. But here is a country where we have laws, regulations, institutions supposed to be combating corruption, but corruption is still happening. So we need to pick from that history, bring it to the present context, and this intergenerational dialogue can bring that out. When I was involved in doing the revival of the national airline, I had to pick the history, what happened to the previous Uganda Airlines, what led to its death, and who told me those stories? The elders then, who are the managers, who are the board members, who are influential, and they gave us that rich historical background, and we said, now, we are not going to bring back a dead thing. The dead thing is buried, and the ghost, we don't know where the ghost exists. We decided to start a new thing. It was a history, we were informed by that history. So storytelling is very, very significant, and I believe that it can help to sharpen the youth, to bring them from the past, to help them know how we reach the present, and to focus on what the future has. Like, that is why we have Vision 2040. We can focus and see by this year we will be here, if this is how we are growing as a country. But remember, where did you come from? That's why even in the Constitution, Joel will tell you, in the preamble, talks about recalling the history of our country, our past history, where people were exposed to challenges, fighting and so on, and instability. We are now reshaping by putting in place economic, social and cultural rights, political and civil rights, group rights, to ensure that Ugandans are able to move from where they are to a certain place where they are going, where we see development, prosperity, coexistence, unity of purpose, and so on. So I think this dialogue is very, very important, where we have the generations, the mature people, the older generation, feeding into the younger generation, so that there is continuity. Yes.
And I also feel like we should never just stop at the dialogue, because so many of people who have been given opportunities to speak out have been blamed for just stopping at dialoguing and talking without action. But I also feel that mentorship is a very key aspect in this conversation. Yes, after having that combined wisdom and the young engagement, what next? Are you mentoring the younger generation? And I do know, Daphne, that you have been a leader before, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, and you know the importance of mentorship in this aspect.
Yeah, sure.
What do you have to say about that?
Well, mentorship is one of, these are the programs we carry out to mostly inspire a young self in society. Yeah. For example, people out there are biased. The information they have at hand actually is not what is on ground. So when we carry out such mentorship programs, we try to clarify what is exactly happening beyond what they think. Yeah. So I really want to appreciate it is called the Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda. Yeah, and it has been a core stakeholder in mentoring young people. Yes. Yeah. I remember someday we joined hands with it, and we had to spearhead some mentorship program in Makerere against corruption, and trust me, there was a great impact on the lives of young people, and also the other side of the story. Yeah, and number two, when we talk about mentorship, we try to eliminate the negative sides of, how should I phrase it? We try to eliminate how people perceive information. Yeah, people, as I told you, that they are so biased. We are at times actually tend to see different personalities in a different way. Yeah, but when we carry out such mentorship, we bring first-hand information, and we try to know who is what and what are they doing to bring impact on society. Definitely.
Yeah. Have you, first, because I know you were a leader before, have you ever been a victim of corruption due to miscommunication? Well, you call it the lack of the correct perception? Well,
yeah, and the bias.
Yeah, well, I remember someday I was acting as a finance leader, And the money which we had to present, I miss it by zero.
By a zero?
A zero, yeah. And man, that is the worst feeling you can ever get, because just a mere zero can ruin your life. Yeah, but we had to do groundwork to rectify that process. So I feel like even in the normal lives, that is what is done. At times we just miss out by just slight things, and it changes the other side of the story.
Yes, I know.
That's why we have to do mentorship programs.
So at the end of this conversation, I just want to know, is having dialogue as a whole effective in the fight against corruption or not? I'll start with Joel. Is it effective or not? Should we dump it, or should we focus mainly on that?
Okay, I'll use a word the famous author has used. Words are seeds, okay? Words are seeds, and when they are planted in a particular place, they will grow into something. It's normally said that we become the summation of all the words that have been spoken unto us, because they affect our thoughts, our attitudes, and our emotions, and our approaches to certain perspectives. So dialogue is key. There is no way you can dispense of dialogue. You cannot just start working out of the blue, because words, when we discuss about what we are going to do, we give what we are going to do direction.
Definitely.
Okay. For instance, like storytelling, maybe if I'm to say, storytelling nowadays, we have modern storytelling. We've got cartoons.
Yeah.
We have men like Mr. Jimmy Spires. Some people may find such people controversial, but they are contributing to the narrative of how stories are told nowadays. You just draw their pictures and
I think one of the latest ones was when the state minister of is it of finance made a statement saying that people who are poor in Uganda are lazy, and you know, poverty is a matter of laziness. You're lazy if you're poor, you're lazy, period. Whether you're working hard or not, you're lazy, and you should style up. And I saw Dr. Jim Spire make a cartoon about that. That is interesting. We'll actually have the cartoon up here. You can have a look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, so those modern perspectives, they can always chip in if we continue to have intergenerational dialogue. There are very many young kids that can draw. Kids can YouTube. I was this holiday, I was talking to a child about 9 or 10, and he was telling me that he actually does a video every month. And I was amazed. I said, first imagine we instilled the fight against corruption into this kid. How much could they affect the younger generation? And remember, we are looking at 77% of the population.
Yes, definitely. Do you think that intergenerational dialogue is the way to go or not?
Yeah, I think, yes, of course. It should be, actually it should be, I feel like it should be a weekly thing. Okay, if not, it should be a monthly.
Like your space here?
Yeah, because there is our leave alone. You know there is, no, you don't know how I feel. I'm seated next to the IGG, and we have perceptions of life. When we are out there, we say, meeting that big lady. Now, how can I start my conversation? But here, if I have my list of questions, I start like interacting with her. She breaks off that odd. She brings the right information on table. We exchange knowledge, and there is a saying that says that old is gold. Yeah, as we are seeing, this generation is fading away, but there is a gold in it. And besides that, we also, the young people, we have a secret. You realize that creativity and innovativeness is more packaged in us. We can instill a sense of creativity in her she did not know before. And number two, you see, it was 2019. I happened to share a story with a colleague, and he connected me to a certain training center. Yeah, if I did not have such a dialogue with him, how could I know?
That's right.
That training center instilled a sense of patriotism in me.
you.
Until now, I know I have to do this for my country, and I have to not to do this for my country. So
Definitely.
intergenerational dialogue is
Is
really
really
very
good.
effective.
Yeah. Well, our time is almost fast spent, but Dr. Patricia, do you think that this is a way to go or not?
I think this is a way to go, and we have all agreed that it's a way to go. But promoting this intergenerational dialogue between the youth and the older generations requires mutual respect and willingness to learn on part of the youth.
Yeah.
There are young people out there who do not want to learn, who are unteachable, who have arrived, who
Rigid.
think that they know it
Pride.
all. But out there, remember, the older generation are still the think tanks of this country. They have got historical memory, and they have got a lot of wisdom and knowledge they can share. And like Daphne has just said, it's important to come down with humility and be able to tap from this knowledge, because it would be absurd to let our generation be wiped away with all the knowledge we have. It's important for us to always be engaging in this constructive dialogue, so that we can learn from one another, derive strategies, learn the new innovative mechanisms of dealing with corruption from the young people, and be able to implement this together, do joint activity, joint activism, joint, what do you call it, advocacy with the youth. And together, I think we shall take this country far in dealing with corruption. It just needs those strategies to work together, to pull our energies together, and be able to move together in the same direction. Remember, with respect and humility, yes, and determination.
Yeah.
Because if you're patriotic, you're also determined for your country, and you know that together, if I hold the youth, we can take this country very far. Otherwise, thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia. So I think those are 3 votes for intergenerational dialogues. Now the ball is in your court. Make it a point today to interact with the older generation and see how you can use both their perspective and your youthful perspective in the fight against corruption in your community. This has been Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinitwe. See you again next Sunday. Bye-bye.